podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the MindField podcast from Anfield Index Pro, your sports psychology podcast where we talk about all things Liverpool and the mind. As always, I am your host, Alan O'Donoghue, and I am joined by my partner in crime, Dr. Andrew Vincent. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Not too bad at all. My office is air-conditioned. My home is currently not, in upstate New York. Or we're coming out of steam room weather, basically. It's been like 97 with like 80% humidity. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but only a bit of an exaggeration. 97 Fahrenheit. Otherwise, we would all be boiled, like actual boiled. So
you have my sympathies. I, on the other hand,
that's all I want.
I, on the other hand, I'm just back from sunny Fungarola in Spain, and it was absolutely blissful. We didn't get as hot as you got, but we got hot enough for my pasty ass to get burnt, and that's all that matters. So, we're on very different sides of the coin in that respect. But Andrew, today we got to talk about Arne Slot is a real person. Who'd have thought?
He's real. We've seen him. We've seen him on video. Richard Hughes is real too. He showed up at the press conference and answered some questions. So as long as those aren't just actors, which I see no reason why that would benefit Liverpool to do that, we've got a real sporting director and a real head coach.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about stuff, so that gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we came on the mics, I was saying to you that when I went away on holiday, I literally switched off from everything. So I haven't seen any interviews, any press conferences, nothing. So I'm going to let you take the reins on this one today, because you have been watching Arne's interviews and you have been watching his press conferences and stuff like that. So I suppose the first thing I'd say is, what's your initial perceptions, observations of Arne, and how is it easy to not compare him to Jurgen Klopp?
I was literally in my head just trying to think of a way not to say he's not Jurgen Klopp. And I don't even mean that fully in a bad way. I think there's like some differences between the two that, are positive based on some of the things we've talked about in recent pods. But I think to just like give my snapshot of what are my impressions of this guy? Like my first thing is he's a confident guy. Mm. And like he's not afraid to be a confident guy. Like that's good. Like I wouldn't say he lacks humility or that he's over the top or arrogant. But he also clearly believes in himself and his ability to make things work and to like bring something new to this team and this club, which is a good thing. I guess if you didn't have that, like, why would you take the job at all? Mm-hmm. He is more football focused. And like, that was Jurgen's job. So it's not that like, he wasn't focused on football, but I think like this is a guy. Jurgen used to kind of like take little breaks in his press conference to like sort of deviate into something a bit more human or make some sort of joke. Like you get the idea that like Slot is really focused on, I'm here to do my job. There's no little funny human interludes or certain things. Like he's pretty straight ahead in terms of like he's focused on the football and focused on his ideas and so like that's good. He's competitive. I mean, he's not afraid to talk about winning. and competing, right? And so Klopp was usually very focused on the process and like, we'll do our best. That was kind of like Klopp's goal every year is we're going to do our best. Whereas Slot seems to have more of a, our goal is to win. And our goal is to win as much as we can. And like, we're here to compete and improve. And like, there's a little bit more edge to that on a results focus, I think. So those were some of my big takeaways. It's not like he has no personality, though. It's not like he's just some soccer guy lacking any sort of personality. Like, he's clearly like a friendly person and a fairly personable guy as well. So that's, certainly shines through. I think you get the impression he was being fairly careful with his words, which is fair enough. It's first time at a big club, big press conference. I don't, maybe not his first time at a big club. Feyenoord's a big club for the Netherlands, but certainly his first time at Liverpool. I think he tiptoes a little bit around the Klopp thing, like just tiptoe. Like, he's very mindful of wanting to recognize Klopp's importance, and not. I think he's very mindful too of not showing up and being like, "Cool, here I am. Klopp era is over." Like, I think he at the same. Like, he's done a nice job, I think, with that actually in his press conferences of being able to acknowledge Klopp's importance and how much he did, while also being like, okay, this is going to be something new and we're here to improve, but without like turning that page too sharply and like throwing himself in the limelight in a way that would just not sit well with people.
Yeah. And I think, so I can kind of pick up on a couple of things that you said there, because what I said, I've avoided everything, not avoided everything, but, I'd see a couple of snippets on social media and I think you actually described it quite well. From what I picked up in the little that I saw was that he does seem very self-assured, and he didn't come across as overawed by the role that he's stepping into, and he doesn't seem overawed by the fact that he's following Jurgen Klopp. It's, I know what I'm going to do, and I trust myself and my ability to actually deliver. You're smiling.
As you say that, what occurred to me? He strikes me as someone who's extremely confident and was being careful not to come across with all of that at once so as to appear less humble than he wanted to. That's what strikes me about him, is I think he just has full belief of what he can do and what's next here. And if he just spoke to that in a free-flowing way, I think he recognizes that he would probably come across as maybe being a little bit too big for his britches or arrogant or promising too much. So I wonder if that's some of the caution that we picked up on, is like, and maybe like with the tip of a hat to Jurgen, if part of all of that is like him wanting to be careful about letting all of that confidence show at once.
Yeah, and I think the reality is when he was having his initial conversations with the media, he doesn't have a clear picture of his full squad, so
right.
Like, he doesn't know whether they'll be able to actually implement the style of play that he wants. But I do think, I wouldn't be surprised if he's taken some, I suppose, some of the elements of, say, Ten Hag's initial press conferences, where he was very bold and very overly confident. You know what I mean? Like, Man City and Liverpool, they're very good teams, but, things come to an end. The implication was we're coming to take over, and it hasn't gone that way. So I wonder, does he look at that kind of stuff and go, right, I got to manage this as best as I can, and I can't come, all guns blazing, balls it on the table, but at the same time, I got to show everybody that I'm not this lucky upstart who has, the club have taken a gamble on him, and I got to show that my philosophy, the way I work, me taking this job is, well, I believe I've earned it.
Yeah. I think one of the lines that like he said that really stuck with me, that backs up what you just said a lot, is like, they were asking him about improving the team And the question was kind of directed towards specifically like almost what do you see that could be improved, or how do you imagine you'll improve the team? And, he didn't, of course, give specifics because like he hasn't seen the whole squad yet, although I'm sure he already has his ideas. It was clear he already has his ideas. But also, he started by being a little bit deferential to Jurgen Klopp and saying like recognizing, hey, the team's been left in a really good spot. So I'm not saying we need a complete overhaul. There's a lot of pieces of how they played that will continue because that's how I like to play too. And then he said, but even if Jurgen was coming back, he would be focused on improving the team too. Like every year you have to make improvements, which is sort of like, let me start by saying, I'm not trying to fix something that Jurgen broke, which is interesting that you even think you have to clear that up, but he did. So he said, I'm not trying to fix something Jurgen broke. Plus our competitors are going to improve. And then here's the line that I love, because instead of saying, here's what I think we can improve, when they said like, what do you think will improve, or why do you think you'll improve, or whatever, his thing was basically like, when I'm the head coach, teams improve.
Wow.
Or it might have been the other way around, where teams improve when I'm the head coach, or teams get better when I'm the head coach. And so like, that is a line, right? It's just oozes confidence. That's how he feels. Is like, he's just like, yeah, I know. Like, I can show up and I can do this. And I think it's awesome to be like, if you're that confident in what you can do, that's good. But you do have to be careful with how you message it at certain times.
Absolutely.
And how that comes out at certain times. And he looks like he understands that. But I think that was like a clear moment for me where it's like, this guy like is not afraid to do his thing, which I love.
Well, I think it's necessary. I think it's what we need.
Yep.
And like, how many conversations have taken place, not only on our podcast, but on many, many of the Anfield Index podcasts and beyond, talking about how, did Jurgen not win the amount of trophies that he probably should and could have? Those conversations have been on for the last 2-3 years. And we're not saying he did or he didn't, but if you're a coach coming in, you have to be coming in with the view, I would think anyway, that I can make this team better. I can bring more success than maybe the previous manager. You have to believe that. Otherwise, there's no point in taking the job.
Yeah, this guy definitely believes that.
And the beauty is there is the room to do that.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Like, it's not like he's, I think I could imagine it would be a very different conversation if you were replacing Pep Guardiola. Having achieved the levels of success, it's almost impossible to achieve more than what Pep has done, bar winning the quadruple every single year. So I could imagine anyone coming into City, whoever the next person may be, it's a very different conversation. It's going to be, we got to maintain.
If City were hiring Arne Slot, he would be saying the same thing. I can almost guarantee you. That's how I feel. That's just my impression, right? I think what he would be saying is the same. Is like, look, like you have to get better every season because our competitors are getting better every season, and that means we have to make this team better this summer, and we'll find ways to do that. That would be the line.
And I'm curious to get your take on Richard Hughes from the bit you've seen of him.
I have almost no take on Richard Hughes. To be honest, he's a nice looking guy with a really nice voice. Like, so that's about it. He looks very distinguished, like he kind of sits up there and looks like you'd want a sporting director to look. He didn't say anything that struck me as like standout or interesting, which is probably how you want a sporting director to be in a thing. Like, they're obviously not giving anything away. They asked him about contracts. They asked him about this. And he's like, we're obviously not going to talk to you about that. And it's like, he gave a pretty knowledgeable, I would say, but standard answer when they asked about incomings. And he was basically like, look, there's a ton of tournaments being played this summer. In general, we don't talk about contracts and transfers as much with players who are actively in the middle of a tournament. Profit and sustainability or whatnot, we're all accountants now. And so we all know that like a bunch of transfers happen right around the start of July. That'll quiet down. And then once tournaments are over and people start reporting back and people get a sense of their teams, there'll probably be more movement. And the company line, as always with Liverpool, is if there's an opportunity that looks appropriate for us, so we'll take advantage of it. So,
right.
Welcome, Richard Hughes.
That's the end of it. And hopefully that is the end of us hearing him. He just does his work in the background, because we don't need to be hearing him.
We don't need to. But, if we do, he's a nice looking guy, nice accent, nice voice. So it could be worse. No one's going to be upset by it.
I'm curious to take it to get what you think the players might have taken from the interviews with Arne if they've watched them, which I'm sure they have.
I don't think he said very much that's really going to land much of anywhere with the players on a negative side, or like he didn't show any cards. I think that the couple things that maybe stood out to me there is like he's clearly going to guard his relationships with players from the media. Right. So he gave a few positive things about players. Like he said he likes Darwin and is looking forward to working with like Darwin in his game. Like I think he was asked directly. I didn't see that, but I saw like a soundbite of it or whatever. He was asked about roles for Trent and someone else. Maybe it was Darwin, maybe it was Diaz. I don't fully remember. Basically, like, do you have thoughts on where their best positions are? He said, yes, I definitely have thoughts, but I'm obviously not going to talk about them with you before I've talked about them with them. So, it's a perfect answer for that. But I think really, like, if I were a player watching him, I would feel like I'm going to get a fair shot and assessment. I would feel like most of what I learn about him is going to come when we actually meet and actually have a face-to-face dynamic. Like, I think I would look forward to meeting him because he seems like a friendly and like good person. I would expect that preseason is going to be physically very difficult. But like if what you're looking for as a player with a new manager is like a fair shot, kind of like to really prove yourself, someone who's going to be invested in improving you, someone who's maybe not going to throw players under the bus or whatever. And like, I think you probably trust that this is someone who's going to do that. But otherwise, like, I think he's probably a little bit of a mystery still to players. I mean, it was a media appearance, and like, it's not, I think when you watch Jurgen Klopp do his thing, you're like, oh man, like, I just want to hang out with that guy. With Arne Slot, like, it's like, he's the Liverpool manager, so it'd still be cool to hang out with him, but you're not immediately like, I definitely want him to be my friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm definitely, and like, nothing against him. Like, he seems interpersonally fine and nice, but he's focused.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of messing around with him. It doesn't look like. He seems incredibly focused.
Yeah. From what you're saying, it almost sounds like he's the in-between Klopp and Rafa,
Yep.
Just that.
Yeah. And
that personable, but I'm here to do a job. I don't need to be a friend. I don't need you to be my friend. Just as long as you do the job that needs to be done. But we still be able to go and have a pint together or have a cup of coffee. Whereas Rafa was just like, do your job. I'll do my job. That's it.
Yeah. I wasn't, I wouldn't have been as clued in during Rafa's time as manager. Like, it just, like, it wasn't super easy to watch Liverpool regularly at that time. So it's like we would have been limited to Champions League games and whatever you could get that play like one game a week from the PL on Fox Soccer channel, something like that. So I certainly at that point wasn't watching like all of his press conferences, so I don't have a strong sense of what he was like as a manager. What I would say is that there's a lot of Pep Guardiola about Slot. And what I mean by that is like you can tell like Guardiola is often very focused on football and like his ideas, and has a little bit more of a cerebral component and focus to him. Whereas, Klopp, in his best moments or in his most fun moments, like you could tell that he was very focused and very intense about the soccer part of things and the football part of things and his relationships with players, but also, might make more jokes and like kind of have some other thoughts or go off on a little bit of like whatever. He was a little bit more lighthearted. I think Slot is dialed in. And so if that was true of Rafa too, then like I would say definitely. I think Slot certainly seems to understand the importance of relationships. And so, I mean, who knows, right? Because it's like there's this other inside training video where they're following him around from the camera, and it's like, they show him going up to a table of players in the canteen and like kind of trying to talk, and you can tell he's like kind of trying to joke and has a big smile. He's introducing himself to the kitchen staff. He's, like kind of making jokes about Sepp Vandenberg, saying he was going to win the new running contest, or the new running, whatever James Milner.
Yeah, the lactate test or whatever.
The beep test. The beep test has apparently been replaced by like how far can you run in 6 minutes test.
Okay.
Sounds horrible, doesn't it? It just sounds bad. And some part of me like wants to see how far I can run in 6 minutes. I don't think it'll be very far, but like some part of me is like, I could probably run for 6 minutes. Like, well, I definitely could run for 6 minutes, but like how intensely can I run for 6 minutes is on my mind. So if I do it, I'll let people know. I'll ask Cyberemnish where I stack up. Although no one's going to be testing my blood or whatever.
Maybe we'll put it out to the AI Pro podcasters and contributors, and let's get a leaderboard going.
Okay.
I wonder.
All right.
I wonder how far ahead Cy would be of everybody.
I'll tell you this though, because I know you run a little bit, right?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit. I would need you to go first, and I could push myself pretty hard to see if I could get in front of you.
So what you're saying is you want to get into competition with me. That's what you're saying.
I'm already in competition with you. Is what I'm saying.
Now we'd have to weight this, Andrew, because I am about 30 years older than you, so there's got to be a way.
30 years older. Yeah, now out of here with that. I'm about 60 pounds heavier than you, I think, at least. So.
But yeah, maybe that's something we could look at introducing. Get the old 6 minute. Who can run the fastest 6 minute? But do we trust people? Like, definitely, there's a couple of lads in Ireland that do podcasts that definitely would cheat. Definitely would cheat. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Downey, and you, Hendrik. I'm talking about you bastards. Because they're Mead people as well. They can't be trusted. They just can't be trusted. So
that's what I've heard. But I'm just going to continue to stay out of all conflicts that exist over there in the middle.
You got to come in. So I suppose building on that, like I also want to kind of ask you about following on from the player's perception. Do you believe? And again, this is just speculation, right? Obviously, you don't have the inside track on this, but do you believe that the backroom changes that we've made, bringing back the people who were previously there, who would have been involved in either bringing in or bringing through the likes of Trent and Curtis, in terms of, so they would have known about the Michael Edwards and the Julian Wards and stuff like that. Those people coming back involved in the setup. Do you think that would provide another layer of trust that the players could have on Arne? Because they could see what these guys have done previously and go, okay, well, they've proven that they can improve on what's been there before, and they've been involved in getting me involved in this club. So I'm going to give Arne even more time to implement and give him my trust, because I trust these guys.
As you said, I don't have the inside track on this. But what I will say is, like, when I've worked with people at a professional level they certainly have their reads on upper management.
Okay.
And like, obviously in the United States, that's more often a general manager, than it is like a sporting director, kind of be the comparable role. And so it's like, they certainly have their reads on and feelings about the general manager. And, I think having more trust in that person or the structure above even definitely will, to some extent, give you like that first benefit of the doubt. I mean, I do think there's also an extent to which, like, maybe early on that gives you a little buy-in, but you're always going to go in and make up your own opinion. And part of that is going to be, how am I treated? What's the role that I see for myself? And, how does this shake out for me personally? And I think, like, you might have, it's like Martin Skirtle when Klopp came in, he, from my understanding, does not have a lot of nice things to say about Jurgen Klopp. Or I think maybe it was his brother who was his agent, doesn't have a lot of nice things to say about Jurgen Klopp. Not everyone's going to get a fair shake, or not everyone, there's some players who are going to have an opportunity to move up in the eyes of the manager, and like their role under Slot might be greater than their role was under Klopp. There's also going to be players who lose status and drop down, aren't treated the same way. Like, that's going to happen too. And those people are going to be frustrated. They're not going to like Slot, probably. Mm-hmm. That's going to play out most likely at a personal level too, to some extent, or if not at a personal level, at least like dissatisfaction with where they are. And so I think that part then, once they have their own experience and make up their own minds, that matters a lot more than, whatever the upper management. It's not like, I just lost my job as a starter and now I'm in and out of the lineup and sometimes not even on the bench after being on the bench every game last year, but I trust Michael Edwards. At that point, a player is going to be like, fuck this. They don't have a spot for me. They don't see what I'm good at. Like, I got to find a new place or prove them wrong or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would think there is. Definitely it matters, but it doesn't override what happens now in preseason.
Their own experience is going to give them more of a sense, but it might give the initial kind of, okay, instead of going, who the fuck is this guy from Feyenoord? They're going, okay, let's give him a chance. He could be, that could be good. And then after the initial,
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I mean, the one thing I would say is, like, let's say someone like Kostas Tsimikas all of a sudden is like the guy at left back all season. All of a sudden, Tsimikas is going to be like, Slot is great, and he's this Edwards and Hughes guy. They really know what they're doing bringing him in. Like that's the kind of thing that's likely to play out. And you'd certainly have players too who could recognize, like, mature enough to see, like, hey, this guy's really good, but I just don't fit here anymore. So they might see, like, hey, the direction this is going is awesome, but there's just no spot for me. But I think a lot of it probably just comes down to how things shake out for them.
I did see a few of the stills from Arne going around and chatting to the players in the canteen and stuff like that. And he did look quite relaxed and quite casual about going about his business. Does he strike you as someone that, will want to make a good impression with the players and get them to like him? Or do you think that would be less of a concern because he is such he comes across as such a focused type of person where it's like, look, if they don't like me, I don't give a shit. They just have to do the job.
I think he's someone who clearly recognizes the importance of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, he'll work to build good relationships with players. Like I think to say he doesn't give a shit would definitely be wrong. I think it'll matter to him. I think it will matter to him too, both in a functional sense. Like I think he recognizes that getting the best out of someone also means having a good relationship, but also matter to him in a human sense. Like he doesn't strike me as someone who's so focused and so dialed into winning and so competitive that he's like not going to care about the human side of things. I think maybe at the far extreme, you've got someone like Mourinho who really used relationships, both the supportive part of relationships and throwing people under the bus as ways to push people like very functionally. I think Slot probably has some of that from the positive relationship side, recognizes that having good relationship and human connection helps performance, but also genuinely connects with people and is like a fairly friendly and personable guy. So I think it's a bit of both. I also imagine if you became unuseful or a problem for him, he would not have a lot of time for it.
Mm-hmm. Which that's one of the element of Klopp's way of being that I don't think was talked about a lot, but some of the stories you hear was that if you became not useful in inverted commas, he had no problem saying, okay, cheerio.
Right.
Look.
Especially if you were a problem. Like someone, you could get Mamadou Sakho'd here pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, but you need that. Like at the end of the day, this is a job. Like we are all passionate about Liverpool Football Club. It means more to us, and we would give any limb that we had spare to be playing and in those lads' positions. But it is a job ultimately, and while they can recognise it means more, I think if you're going to have longevity in the sport, you have to be able to separate that out. Is that your experience of working with athletes? And I know we've touched on this in the past, where you got to highlight, well, look, what are you doing outside? What are you doing away from the sport to give you that sense of balance? Because like we do that. Like we watch football because it helps to give us a sense of balance in terms of our own work and lives. But those guys got to find that space where they can just kind of switch off.
Yeah, I see that as players age, especially. That as they mature a bit, and maybe like especially have a family, but like just in general, they start to recognize the importance of having a life away from the sport, and just kind of not dialing down the importance of the sport in their overall life, but a little bit is like that this isn't everything about who they are, and that they have this life outside of that, and the boundaries around that are a bit stronger. Maybe it looks a little bit more like a job than when you're young, and I think it's different here depending on the sport, because often you have like a university setting, and so when you have university sports, it's like you've got these players who are living together, who are going to all of their meals together, who are like they're around each other constantly. And so in that case, like it feels like your whole life, because it is kind of your whole life. You're going to classes with these people too. It's very all encompassing, and that's an important time to have some separation, but a time where I find that separation isn't quite there in the same way. But what I have seen is as players get to a professional level, get a little bit more established in their life, and maybe around the time they become like 24, 25, 26, 27, that's when you might start to see more of that separation playing a role. And I think it's, like you said, especially important for longevity within the sport. I think that's the other thing too, is you can be 18, 19, 20 and not really have had your heart broken yet, by the sport. By the time you get to 25, 26, 27, like more than likely you've had a rough patch, something hasn't gone your way. Like even if you're one of the elite players, you've had a bad season or an injury or something that's helped highlight to you, having some robustness outside of sport matters.
And I think the same goes for coaching. Like, and we've just had someone who probably exemplifies that walk out the door. Like, I could imagine the intensity that Klopp did his job. That's probably why he got to the point where he's like, I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, I think to be a manager at that level, like you have to be willing to sacrifice so much of your life. And it's a big sacrifice. I mean, to be honest, like it's not a sacrifice that I would make, like, and not that anyone's knocking on my door for me to become a manager of anything, but like, like, I don't know that I know it's not a sacrifice that I would make. And so I think, especially for Jurgen, who I think really understands the value of life away from sport and really understands the value of like a regular life and relationships and wanting to go places. Like he's got a desire for that. I think there's some managers who it's like, maybe they don't seem to be yearning for that as much. It's like they love the go of football constantly. But yeah, it's a huge sacrifice. And I don't know how possible it is to have a really robust life away from sport with that level of, I think it'd probably be easier for players than it is a manager.
Absolutely, yeah. Because, for players, it's gotten a lot busier as there's more and more competitions, and more international participation and stuff like that. But they get their time away, whereas managers and coaches, they're probably like most people. They get their couple of weeks off, and that's probably it. That because they are into we got to sign this person, we got to sell this person. What are we going to do with these players? Like where? And that just doesn't switch off. And I'm sure you find your flow and you find your way of working. That still has to fit into the hierarchy and the structures within the club and the organization that you have. Like,
yeah, for sure. And I think like even
I was going to say, I would love to get the Michael Edwards version and the Jurgen Klopp version of the trajectory of their relationship, how it started out, how it worked quite well, and then what changed in the bell curve to kind of get it to the point where, and I'm sure it wasn't just them two individually, but I'd be really curious to see or to know. It's just my own little interest, but I'd love to know how that went and what were the influencing factors when it came to the decisions that were made.
Mm-hmm. I would be too. I would be interested too. They're both people who you would never get the real story from, but if you could get the real story from them, it would be super interesting. One of the things I was going to say just about the role that managers have and coaching staff and, further down is like, couple times being on the road with a team, just for a little bit, it's like the coaching staff needs to be on for the game, right? And so they're on the benches, or they're making decisions, they're moving things through the game, but then it's like when the game ends, the players have to cool down and take care of their bodies. It's going to take a little bit of time. They got to eat something, whatever. But like the coaching staff now, they need to eat too, but they also have media responsibilities often. Then they're jumping right into analysis of the game. Yeah. And so like often before they go to bed, you've got, first of all, an equipment manager who's breaking a bunch of stuff down, especially if you're on the road. You're basically taking down an entire locker room worth of stuff, packing everything up and getting it onto a bus. You've got a video coach who's going through the video of the game and cutting clips so you can see certain parts of the game and break down certain kinds of moments. You've got assistant coaches who maybe have certain roles. I mean, this is within hockey. I imagine it's true within football too, though, is like, so maybe they're going to go back and watch all the set pieces. You're going to have one coach who has to analyze all the set pieces and look at the next opponent. We have to analyze all of their set pieces. We might have 3 days to do this. They're going to be looking at how other teams performed and what other teams did and looking at video of that. Like, so you've got so much analysis that goes on in those moments. If you're a player, you maybe can take the trip home to relax or to sleep or to, switch off and do something else. Often for managers, that's not the case. Is they're in that zone of, now I'm analyzing this game, preparing for the next game. What am I going to say? What do we have to focus on? I've got players coming to me with concerns. What are the conversations I need to have before we play next? And that can happen in a super abbreviated amount of time. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. And that's at the highest level. Like, when you go down a couple of tiers, you have less staff, you have less pay, but the responsibilities and the expectations are still on you to do the exact same thing. Like, my local team, Drogheda United, this year we were taken over by an American group, but we've been the only part-time team in the League of Ireland for the last few seasons, and this year we're battling relegation. We've kind of punched above our weight, and the coach was made full-time, and they're going to move to a full-time structure. Well, we might be moving to a full-time structure in the division below, but I went to an open night at the start of the season, and they were talking to the manager about what it was like moving into the full-time role. He's a postman, but he's moving into the full-time role. And he's kind of saying, I'm nervous because people don't realise that, the amount of work and the expectations that are now on my shoulders. So he said, I'd go to work during the day, then I'd come home and I'd go through the video analysis, and I'd be chopping up the clips myself to send to the coaches and stuff like this. And he said, like, people assumed once I got the job full time, well, great, you can do that. But he said, what's come with the full-time job is more media responsibilities, more involvement in discussions with players, more tactical stuff. So he said, I'm still doing the video stuff in the evenings and chopping it up. And he's got a young family. Like, that absolutely takes toll. And he's not earning, huge money. Right. So it's there's a dedication and love that you need the family to buy into as well.
Yeah.
That's just...
No, you need to be so driven and have a lot of understanding around that. I mean, that's true on the playing side too. Yeah. It's like, even just coming down to, for players, what you're going to eat and not eat, and like, it's in every part of your life, like your sleep schedule, your eating and dietary needs, being away for long periods of time, the amount you have to put into training or rest or taking a nap at a certain time, because that's what's going to sort of put you at your peak. Traveling, potentially, like, being one place and then suddenly getting moved to a different team, which can be quite far away. It's a lot to be in this field and line of work, and it's more than I would be willing to do. I assume if I were like an exceptional athlete and was like, had the chance to play professionally for a period of time, I absolutely would have. But there is a lot of sacrifice,
There is. So we'll see what kind of sacrifice Arne brings. Hopefully there's a few blood sacrifices there.
I think I feel like Arne Slot, just like his whole life is, he seems so focused. Yeah. Like, unbelievably focused. That's the word. Like, the more we talk about him, that's what I pull from this, is like, very focused. So, like, I don't know. I'm not going to make any claims about his personal life. I have no idea, but like, it wouldn't surprise me if he went back to his house and he had a room that was like a tactics board with video, and just like, that was his wind down time, is like, let me review this game from the some World Cup in the 1970s and look at how this person interpreted the libero role to whatever, and he's like, oh man, I've been waiting to do this for weeks. I finally got some free time to, that strikes me as something that might make him a happy guy.
I'm excited to get the season started. I'm excited to see what he brings, and I'm excited to watch the process. Like, obviously, as a fan, you want to see him hit the ground running, and you want to see him win every single match. But I'm curious to see how it goes. I'm not going into this season with trepidation and fear. I might have trepidation and fear 3 months in, who knows? But right now I'm not. I think I'm getting a good feeling about what he's going to bring to the table, and a freshness coming back to the club. Not that they were stale, but it's just a different different atmosphere.
I think new is exciting, and it gives us a chance to dig into something different and see something different. And I'm excited too. I think, like, this isn't someone who's afraid to come in and put his stamp on things, and so I love watching things come together. I love the process of building and seeing that, and so I think that's really what we're going to be getting this year. And I think from someone who feels very confident in his ability to improve a team and improve individuals, and someone who's going to be very focused on that and dedicated about that. I think that he's also probably someone who, like, Klopp didn't really, I don't think, like fielding tactical questions, or like he didn't often give a lot of depth in tactical answers. I think that Slot will want to. It's part of how he thinks and part of his focus. And so obviously, other than like giving away any sort of information, like he doesn't really want to be giving away, here's exactly what we're doing. But like there was a really interesting, there's a moment in his press conference, which maybe you've seen a little bit of, where it was like, I think it was, I don't know the guy's name, but he's from Redmen TV. I think he had to ask a question. It was like he asked about like you playing a 4-2-3-1. And Slot basically was like, who told you we were playing a 4-2-3-1 at Feyenoord? He was like, we weren't playing a 4-2-3-1 at Feyenoord. Maybe it was someone who's still working on their coaching patches or whatever who told you that. He was like, we were building up from a 3, and kind of like start to get into the tactical elements of it a little bit, and really just saying like, no, we were doing this. And, whoever it was that told you we were playing 4-2-3-1 maybe needs to go back and reanalyze my teams. And it was interesting because it was almost part like, I'm happy to talk tactics with you, but you better know what you're talking about. The other part of it was almost like offended that someone thought he was building up at a 2. There was a little bit of like, how dare you about it? Which I think this guy's got an ego, and like a healthy ego. I like it. Like that's my thing, is like interpersonally, maybe we see more of him as he continues to get comfortable of just like him, the human. But in the meantime, him, the head coach, is going to be a lot of fun because his level of confidence is supreme. My understanding in some ways too is that his honesty and forthrightness and willingness to be comfortable with what he's good at is a very Dutch trait. And I don't know if that's a fair thing for me to say. Obviously, like I don't know, but that's something that like we also see in Ten Hag, and I think also see in some different Dutch players. And I think it's awesome. I'm pumped about it.
It's going to be interesting. So that's it for our first Arne Slot chat. It was a good one. I promise I'll come back better prepared next time, Andrew. And thanks for your insights as always. Listeners, thanks for your ears. If you're not a subscriber, please do sign up. It's only the price of a cup of tea or a cup of coffee once a month, so it's well worth it. And we'll be back very soon with another MindField podcast.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.